Welcome to Inside Edition examines Jeffrey Dahmer. In 1978, a killing spree began that continued for more than 13 years and left 17 men dead. The man behind them became known as the Milwaukee Monster. Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested in 1991 and was eventually convicted in 16 of those gruesome murders and sentenced to life in prison. In 1993, Dahmer granted Inside Edition a jailhouse interview. Take a look.
I desensitized myself to it. I don't know, I went to great lengths.
He is pure evil, but you'd never know it by looking at him. But when you hear him, that's another story. His killing field was Milwaukee, and he got away with murder for more than a decade. But how could any of this happen? For the first time ever, Nancy Glass is here inside the world of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Bill, when I sat down opposite Jeffrey Dahmer for this interview, I wondered what he would tell me, how hard it would be to get him to discuss his horrific crimes. What I found was that he was very forthcoming. He volunteered details that may be difficult to hear. I began by asking what he wanted from the men he picked up.
I had these obsessive desires and thoughts wanting to control them, to I don't know how to put it, possess them permanently.
And that's why you killed them?
Right, right. Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me. And as my obsession grew, I was saving body parts such as skulls and skeletons.
Jeffrey Dahmer is recalling his monstrous past. Almost 2 years ago in this little apartment in Milwaukee, police discovered the grisly remnants of one of the most horrible crime sprees in American history. Jeffrey Dahmer, an unassuming chocolate factory worker, would eventually confess that he had seduced, murdered, and dismembered 17 young men. He even ate some of his victims' body parts. He instantly became the center of worldwide media attention, a serial killer unmasked. There were protests and press conferences in Milwaukee as people tried to understand how this could have happened in their midst. How did Jeffrey Dahmer get away with murder after murder for 13 years? How did a boy born into a hard-working middle-class family turn into the worst kind of monster imaginable? In this exclusive interview, we put those questions to Jeffrey Dahmer himself. We met with him at the maximum security prison where he is serving his sentence of 999 years. For the first time, he talks about his crimes and gives us a chilling look inside the mind of a serial killer.
It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. When you depersonalize another person and view them as just an object for pleasure instead of a living, breathing human being, it seems to make it easier to do things you shouldn't do.
The reason why Jeffrey Dahmer was able to get away with his crimes was because of just what you are seeing here. Jeffrey Dahmer is intelligent and articulate. That is what makes him so frightening. But if you listen carefully to his words throughout this interview, you realize it is a thin disguise. You do sound, though, like the kind of person who could have said to himself, "This is wrong. I must stop."
I always knew that it was wrong, but after the first killing was not planned. I was coming back from the shopping mall back in '78. I had fantasies about picking up a hitchhiker and taking him back to the house and having complete control and dominance over him.
The hitchhiker's name was Stephen Hicks. He was just 18. Jeffrey Dahmer took him to his parents' house. There he strangled him with a barbell. He dismembered the body and hid it in a drain pipe. It was Jeffrey Dahmer who gave those details to the police in his confession.
No one had a clue as to what was happening for over a decade.
During that time, Jeffrey Dahmer joined the Army and was sent to Germany. He was eventually discharged for a drinking problem and returned to Ohio. 9 years after Stephen Hicks' murder, the killing began again. What happened to you in the 9 years in between that you were able to stop, that you were able to control yourself?
It just wasn't an opportunity to fully express what I wanted to do. There was just not the physical opportunity to do it then. And I started, when I moved to Milwaukee in '81, I started reading pornography, going to the bookstores. Eventually that led to frequenting the gay bars. And then one time I brought this young man back to the hotel room, the Ambassador Hotel. Was just planning on drugging him and spending the night with him. Had no intention of hurting him. When I woke up in the morning, he had a broken rib here, was heavily bruised. Apparently I had beaten him to death with my fists.
And you have no memory of it?
I have no memory of it. But that's what started the whole spree all over again.
Dahmer says he snuck the corpse of his victim, Stephen Toomey, out of his hotel room in a suitcase. Then he took it to his grandmother's house, where he cut up the body and put it in plastic garbage bags. When you killed these men, afterwards, were you repulsed? Were you upset?
No, at the time, it was almost addictive. It was almost a surge of energy. I wouldn't have to worry about any of their needs or anything. I just had complete control of the situation.
But Jeffrey Dahmer was out of control. The urge to kill had overpowered him. As police later learned, he wasn't satisfied with his victim's death. He wanted more. Why did you photograph them?
It was my way of remembering their appearance, their physical beauty. I also wanted to keep something. If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons. And I even went so far as planning on setting up an altar with the 10 different skulls and skeletons.
And what was the purpose of the altar going to be?
As a sort of memorial. A point where I could, I don't know, it's so bizarre and strange, it's hard to describe. A place where I could collect my thoughts and feed my obsession.
When the bodies were still in your apartment, there was no time when you would see them and say, this is grotesque, what have I done?
There were times, but the compulsive obsession with doing what I was doing overpowered any feelings of revulsion.
This man with a quiet, almost shy demeanor became a master manipulator who was able to lure strangers he met at gay bars to his apartment. He was even able to con the police into returning a 14-year-old boy to him after neighbors called 911 upset that the child was in the street naked and bleeding. Dahmer convinced the police that he and the boy were simply having a lover's quarrel.
It's an intoxicated boyfriend of another boyfriend.
Well, how old was this child?
It wasn't a child, it was an adult.
After the police left, Jeffrey Dahmer murdered that boy, Conorak Synthesomphone. This man says he had a near-fatal encounter with Jeffrey Dahmer.
He wanted to take some picture of my back. He hit me with a rubber hammer on my neck.
He was lucky to escape because by then the killing had become almost routine. Before you went out to pick up a man, was there any kind of ritual you went through?
I'd go to the nightclubs, drink, watch the striptease shows, and if I didn't meet anyone at the bars, I'd go to the bath clubs and meet someone there. offer them money, and we'd go back to the apartment, have a few drinks. I'd have the sleeping pill mixture already prepared. Person would drink it, fall asleep, and that's when they would be strangled.
After the break, there was more to Jeffrey Dahmer's murder ritual. A specific movie would often get him going. We'll hear more from Dahmer himself. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside Edition examines Jeffrey Dahmer. Before the break, we heard Dahmer talk about the ritual he went through before each killing. There was another part to this, and it might surprise you.
Watching the movie Exorcist 3 was also part of his ritual. It put him in the mood for murder.
I felt so hopelessly evil and perverted that I actually derived a sort of pleasure from watching that tape.
Did you like feeling evil?
No, I didn't. But I had tried to overcome the thoughts, and it worked for a while, but eventually I gave in.
While Jeffrey Dahmer may say things today that make it seem like he understands what went on in his mind, he does not. All he can do is tell you what happened, but he cannot stop whatever it is that drove him to kill in the first place.
Do you still feel those same urges? Do you still feel that compulsion, that obsession?
I wish I could say that it just left completely, but no, there are times when I still do have the old compulsions.
Jeffrey Dahmer says as time went on, his mind became more and more warped, and yet he was clever enough to continue to elude police and lure young men to his apartment. We should warn you, the details are very graphic.
I started having these obsessive thoughts when I was about 15 and 16, and they got worse and worse.
What were your fantasies about?
They were sexual fantasies of control, power, complete dominance. They became reality.
Was there pleasure in that fantasy?
There was excitement, fear, pleasure, all mixed together.
Jeffrey Dahmer fulfilled his fantasies by murdering and dismembering 17 young men. In time, his desires became more extreme, his deeds more grotesque. Listen to him talk about the most unnatural things in the most matter-of-fact of ways. That's when you realize that none of it has touched him.
I was branching out. That's when the cannibalism started, eating of the heart and the arm muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me. At first it was just curiosity, and then it became compulsive. Then I tried to keep the person alive by inducing a zombie-like state. By injecting first dilute acid solution into their brain or hot water, and it never did completely work.
Could someone like you be stopped? Could you be helped?
No, I was dead set on going with this compulsion. It was the only thing that gave me any satisfaction.
He became so warped by his evil impulses that he even took a victim's head with him to work at the Ambrosia chocolate factory.
I kept the mummified head and skull of one of the victims in a carrying case in my locker at work.
Were you almost flaunting it?
Yes, but that's how strong the compulsion was. That's how bizarre the desire was. I wanted to keep something of the person with me.
Jeffrey Dahmer exhibited some disturbing behavior early on. He began drinking heavily as a teenager, dropped out of college, was arrested for indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, and fondling a 13-year-old boy. Tragically, one of his murder victims would be that boy's brother.
Do you know what started it? Was there any kind of incident that you can remember?
To this day, I don't know what started it. And the person to blame is sitting right across from you. That's the only person. Not parents, not society, not pornography. I mean, those are just excuses.
His macabre 13-year crime spree finally ended when this man, Tracy Edwards, brought the police to the infamous apartment. Like the others, he had gone there with the promise of money.
He was listening to my heart because at a point he told me he was going to eat my heart at that point. I hit him and I ran.
What was the turning point for you that made you suddenly realize that you had done something terribly wrong, something you should be sorry for?
It was the night of the arrest. I have no memory of what happened during the 6 hours before the last victim ran out of the apartment. I heard a knock on the door, and the police were there with the last victim. They asked me where the key was to the handcuffs. My mind was in a haze. I sort of pointed to the bedroom, and that's where they found the pictures. And they yelled, "Cuff him." And I was handcuffed. And it was just the realization that there was no point in trying to hide my actions anymore. The best route was to help the police identify all the victims and just make a complete confession.
When it was revealed that most of the victims were black or homosexual, people in Milwaukee were incensed. Many felt that was why he went after them and why the police didn't seem to care when their families reported them missing.
10 of your 17 victims were black. Were they racially motivated
It was
crimes?
not racially motivated. It was not sexual preference. It was just to find an obsession with the best-looking young man I could find.
While you just heard him say that his sexual preference had nothing to do with the killings, he has not come to terms with his homosexuality.
Never understood it. There was no use trying to fight it because I couldn't rid myself of it. It was too powerful and persistent.
Do you dislike it?
Yes, it's caused a lot of problems for me. A lot of conflicts and unanswered questions.
The conflicts remain with him, and so do his compulsions. But in prison, he finally cannot act on his savage desires.
If you were out on the street now, would you still be committing the crimes?
Probably. If this hadn't happened, there's no doubt I probably would be. I can't think of anything that would have stopped me.
Coming up after the break, some rarely seen footage from this interview. Stay with us.
It's Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer and cannibal whose saga of evil has been given new life in the hit Netflix series Monster.
I'm going to ask you some questions that are tough.
In this never-before-seen video from the Inside Edition archives, he's clearly nervous. His hands won't stay still as he prepares for the exclusive 1993 interview.
What questions are we going to start out with?
A new generation is learning about his horrifying crimes through the #1 Netflix series.
In what appears to be a psychopathic mass murder.
Destination 32 clear.
This world-exclusive interview took place inside the maximum security prison in Wisconsin, where he was serving 999 years. He was escorted by 3 prison guards. One officer held each arm as he was taken in handcuffs into an elevator. Nobody was taking any chances with the most notorious killer in America. Dahmer was 33 when he told Nancy Glass about his twisted motive for killing 17 men.
Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me. And as my obsession grew, I was saving body parts such as skulls and skeletons, and eventually I did turn to cannibalism.
It's for you.
He described how he picked up his victims in gay bars and brought them home.
I'd have the sleeping pill mixture already prepared. Person would drink it, fall asleep, and that's when they would be strangled.
And he made a startling admission about the evil urges that propelled him to kill.
Do you still feel those same urges? Do you still feel that compulsion, that obsession?
I wish I could say that it just left completely, but no, there are times when I still do have the old compulsions.
A creature of the night, he said he slept most of the day in prison. During the interview, he asked for several breaks.
Can we cut the film here for a minute?
Sure.
Dahmer was murdered by another prison inmate just a year and 10 months after this interview, a form of justice he said he deserved.
That's what I deserve. I deserve death.
Dahmer was beaten to death by another inmate while they were on cleaning duty. Coming up, the families of Dahmer's victims speak out about the Netflix movie about the killings, saying it triggers horrible memories.
The #1 show on Netflix this weekend was the miniseries on murderer Jeffrey Dahmer. The film reopens some old wounds for some of Dahmer's victims. And as Amber Cogliano reports, some say the impact of the movie is heightened by the incredible resemblance between the real-life killer and the actor who portrays him.
It's the face of evil, reborn. These are scenes from the new Netflix drama about serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer.
You're gonna make me do things I don't want to do.
Actor Evan Peters plays the infamous cannibal killer. This is the actor, and this is the monstrous Dahmer. Dahmer, a chocolate factory worker, lured unsuspecting young men to his Milwaukee apartment where he drugged and strangled them. He dismembered his victims and ate their body parts.
Dahmer's bloody history finally came to an end when a young man he had targeted for death escaped the killer's apartment and alerted cops. Dahmer was arrested and confessed to 17 killings.
I knew I was sick or evil or both.
At his sentencing, the disgust he inspired in one victim's sister erupted. Inside Edition aired a world-exclusive interview with Dahmer in 1993 at the maximum security prison, where he was serving 999 years.
Eating of the heart and the arm muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me.
Now the new Netflix series is bringing memories of Dahmer's vile deeds flooding back. Preston Davis narrowly escaped death at Dahmer's hands when they were in the Army together, and Dahmer sexually assaulted him. Davis, now 63, has watched the Netflix series.
How was that for you watching?
I think they did a good job. It didn't trigger me. I've gotten better through therapy. I felt more sympathy or empathy for the victims' families.
Billy Joe Capshaw was also sexually assaulted by Dahmer in the Army.
Does it bring back all of these horrible memories?
Yes, it does. I have been through hell because of this one person. I'm going to keep the language clean.
The woman who vented her anger on Dahmer watched the show's recreation of that moment and says, "It felt like reliving it all over again. It brought back all the emotions I was feeling back then." In our 1993 interview, Dahmer made this confession.
There's no question that I deserve the death penalty.
In a sense, he got his way. He was bludgeoned to death by another prison inmate in 1994. But in the Netflix series, he lives again.
Dahmer was 34 years old when he was killed in prison.
Coming up, the father of Jeffrey Dahmer dies. We'll tell you about his complicated feelings regarding his son. The father of notorious serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer has died. Reports say Lionel Dahmer died in hospice care in Ohio. He was 87. Lionel was a fierce defender of his son, even after his crimes were discovered. He even appeared alongside Jeffrey in a jailhouse interview with MSNBC.
This is the first time you're talking about these things
I've talked
your dad
about it
here?
at great length with psychiatrists, court-appointed psychiatrists, psychologists, but not with my family.
We learned everything at the trial and in the confessions and that sort of thing after the fact.
Lionel and his wife Sherry spoke with Dr. Phil about some of the disturbing behaviors Jeffrey exhibited as a child.
If your kid is going around collecting dead animals, cutting them open and exploring them and that sort of thing, how do you not know that?
Well, as I said, it's heavily wooded, very rough terrain, and there are a lot of hiding places. He was extremely secretive.
In 1994, Lionel published a book titled A Father's Story that tried to make sense of his son's crimes. That same year, Jeffrey Dahmer was killed in a Wisconsin prison by a fellow inmate. A report says that Lionel Dahmer was still angry about the killing decades after it happened. Coming up, we'll talk with more family members of serial killers and hear how they dealt with the knowledge of the horrific crimes.
These people were loved ones of serial killers. From 2022, this brave nurse stopped the man who may have been America's most prolific serial killer.
He murdered people right in front of me.
Amy Lochran worked alongside Charles Cullen for a year and a half at a hospital in New Jersey. They became close friends. She never suspected anything until police confidentially showed her evidence that he was injecting patients with legal doses of drugs.
The medications he used were brutal medications, for instance, that are paralytics, that you cannot speak, you cannot breathe, you cannot fight back, you cannot blink. You can hear everything that's happening.
Investigators asked Amy to use her friendship with Cullen to get him to confess, she told Jim Murray.
Did you actually wear a wire to help get him to confess?
I did.
They suspected Cullen's murderous crime spree began in the late 1980s. Netflix turned Nurse Amy's story into a movie, The Good Nurse. Jessica Chastain plays Amy. Eddie Redmayne plays the serial killer.
What do you need me to do?
Tell the truth.
Charles Cullen pleaded guilty to murdering 29 people. How many people do you suspect he actually murdered?
It's well into the hundreds of how many people he not only tried to kill, but probably did murder, around 400.
So how did this monster evade justice for so long? Amy Lochran says Cullen moved from hospital to hospital, maintaining his cover as a caring nurse.
For much of her life, Sierra Barter had suspicions that her family history held a monstrous secret. One of her relatives might have been a serial killer.
Here's the reality. Somebody's grandpa was a serial killer. Was it mine? I don't know. But somebody's grandpa was.
Her mission to find answers about her step-grandfather was the topic of the documentary series The Truth About Jim, streaming on Max.
What I'm trying to understand is who was Jim?
Started out as normal seeming relationship, and it just kept getting more bizarre.
Jim Mordecai was a well-respected high school teacher in Northern California, but to his family, he was a predator with an alleged history of sexual and physical violence against women and girls.
He either was the most charming man you were ever going to meet, or he was your worst nightmare.
While Sierra tried to uncover who Jim Mordecai was, clues led her to believe he may have been the notorious Zodiac killer.
Zodiac had a stocky, athletic build. Jim was very stocky, very athletic. The shoe print they found was a 10.5. Jim wore size 10.5.
The Zodiac killer was never caught. He claimed responsibility for over 30 murders in Northern California in the late 1960s.
The similarities that Sierra was able to find between Jim and the Zodiac killer were locations. They often went to the same place.
Director Skye Borgman says that Sierra's journey ultimately leads to some closure for her family.
First and foremost, it's about generational trauma and how 3 generations of women are dealing with generational trauma and how they all feel that Jim could have done more than what they know he did.
Joseph James D'Angelo Jr. is known to the world as the Golden State Killer. In 2020, his brother-in-law of 40 years, James Huddle, spoke about him to Jim Murray.
He was married to your sister.
Yes.
And you never had an inkling of what he was?
Nope. He kept everything to himself. Quite certain that no one else in the family knew either.
Huddle's sister Sharon got married to D'Angelo in 1973. The family thought he was quite a catch. Handsome, a respected cop with the Exeter, California Police Department. But looking back, there were telltale signs that something wasn't right.
For instance, D'Angelo's interest in slasher movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Wow, the excitement involved in his face and his clenched teeth at this horrific scene on TV.
So when he would watch these horror movies, you saw him get physically excited?
Yes.
Like a movie villain, D'Angelo would taunt his victims over the phone. D'Angelo has 3 daughters from his marriage to Huddle's sister.
They lost their father, in a way, they really did. I mean, he changed from this wonderful dad to them to this horrible person.
D'Angelo confessed to 13 killings and almost 50 rapes. There were so many victims and their families, authorities had to conduct the hearing in a ballroom.
He is the real-life version of Hannibal Lecter.
The detail just made me just cringe all the more and feel the sorrow I felt for those victims. There's so many.
Huddle wrote a book, Killers Keep Secrets, in which he lays bare his family's shock at learning the truth about the monster in their midst.
I became outraged at what he had done. Sure. And even more outraged last night when I reviewed the hearing.
D'Angelo's former fiancée spoke out as well.
I got out of it, but to be engaged to him ever is a regret I'll always have.
Bonnie Caldwell was engaged to Joseph D'Angelo in the early 1970s at 18.
He was my first long-term relationship. I didn't have dating experience. It started off very lighthearted.
Jim Murray has more.
But Bonnie broke off the engagement when she found out how scary D'Angelo could be. He did not take the rejection well. He actually tried to abduct her at gunpoint so he could take her to Nevada and force her to marry him.
He said, "Get dressed, we're going to Reno, we're going to get married tonight." Now I know that he's more than capable of using a gun to kill someone.
D'Angelo's hatred of Bonnie was unmistakable when he launched his monstrous 13-year-long crime spree. One of the victims says D'Angelo repeatedly sped out, "I hate you, Bonnie," as he raped her.
Take your mask off.
In court, 50 years after she broke up with him, Bonnie refilled her face. She wasn't allowed to speak since she was technically not a victim of D'Angelo's crimes. Her friend, D'Angelo rape survivor Jane Carlson Sandler, spoke on her behalf.
Even a gun pointed at her face could not make her choose you.
I don't think the man has a soul.
Stay with us. After the break, we'll hear from a woman who was engaged to one of the country's most notorious serial killers, and she had no idea.
In 2017, this woman had no idea that the man she was having an affair with was one of America's most notorious serial killers.
There was always something that sat uneasy with me about him, and I just really couldn't put my finger on it.
Holly Udy is still coming to terms with the terrifying trail of death left by the man she was in love with for 10 years, Todd Kohlhepp. He was arrested in 2016 after a woman he kidnapped was found chained by the neck inside of a storage container on his property.
Hey, we're going to get you out of there, okay?
It was just disgusting. I mean, it was sickening. He gave me a lot of attention, and he made me feel like I was important.
Holly met Kohlhepp in 2006 and started an affair. She never suspected that he had already murdered 4 people. Holly actually loaned Kohlhepp the money to buy the container. Megan Alexander has more.
Kohlhepp told Holly that he needed the container to store supplies. He had it delivered here to this remote property he owned. 95 acres of mostly dense forest, miles from civilization. He put shelving in it and stocked it with canned food and cases of water. Holly couldn't have known that he was turning the container she helped him buy into a prison. That container was way, way back there in the woods.
The container was right here.
I mean, that is completely surrounded by woods. You can't hear anything if you're back here. She was completely isolated.
Yes.
You actually went into the container.
Yes.
Were you suspicious at all when you were in there?
No, it was simply storage. It was all storage.
Did you ever notice anything, the way he was arranging it, about what it was going to be used for in the future?
No.
When cops rescued Kayla Brown in the storage container, she told him what Kohlhepp had done to her boyfriend, Charlie Carver.
Todd Kohlhepp shot Charlie Carver 3 times in the chest, wrapped him in a blue tarp, put him in the bucket of the tractor. He says he's dead and buried.
As Kayla rolled to the hospital, she made this stunning statement.
Some girl named Holly, he's supposedly planning to kill her.
My mouth fell open. The first time I heard it, I stopped and I rewinded and I listened to it again.
Some girl named Holly, he's supposedly planning to kill her.
And yes, she did just say my name. She just said my name. It's overwhelming looking at it and trying to put myself in Kayla's shoes. I know I wouldn't have survived. I know I wouldn't have.
The notorious serial killer known as BTK is this woman's father.
I had to cut him off. It hurts. I love my dad. I don't know that other person.
In 2022, Carrie Rawson said her father, Dennis Rader, was tormenting her from behind bars by getting his groupies to harass her for cutting off all contact with him. She spoke to Ann Mercogliano.
Do you know if your father directed his followers to cyberstalk you?
I do, because they sent me Instagram and Twitter messages and emails that said, I'm in contact with your dad, I'm on the phone with him, he's this nice guy. So I want nothing to do with any of it.
One text someone sent her said, your dad really wants to hear from you terribly. He's desperate. Another said, your dad would love a letter. He truly loves you so much. Rader was convicted in 2005 of killing 10 people during his 17-year reign of terror in Wichita, Kansas.
People call me a monster. I guess I am sort of a monster.
I don't know if they understand that, like, if somehow my dad got out of prison, you know, he would stalk and possibly want to murder them.
In 2023, the family of the accused Gilgo Beach killer got comfort from a woman who knows firsthand what they were going through.
I'm the daughter of the Happy Face Killer.
Melissa Moore's father is Keith Jesperson, the notorious Happy Face Killer. He was called that because of the smiley face he drew on taunting letters to cops. He murdered 8 women in the 1990s. After architect Rex Heuermann was charged with murdering 3 women, Melissa Moore's sense of compassion led her to set up a GoFundMe page for the Heuermann family. That led to an extraordinary encounter, a get-together at the family's home on Long Island.
I just embraced her and gave her a hug, stroked her hair and said, it's all gonna be okay.
Moore tells Allison Hall she also met Heuermann's 2 grown children.
You went in the home and then you sat on the porch with the 3 of them?
Yeah, it was very relaxing in the sense that there was no reporters. The one thing that I'm very proud of, though, is that I was able to offer some relief in this hellish circumstance.
What advice did you give them when you met with them?
I have lots of advice, but the one thing that I would hope for them is that they would leave the home and not attend the trial. I'm actually really impressed with how the family is coping under the circumstances. They're dissecting their lives. I mean, who wouldn't be dissecting their life when you find out that your husband's accused of serial murder?
Although authorities say the wife and children were ignorant of the crimes Heuermann was charged with, the lawyer who represents some Gilgo Beach victims wasn't convinced.
She should be considered a suspect and not just a bystander or someone who's been victimized by a husband.
There are some people who think she must have known. What do you think about that?
Well, I wouldn't put my name on a GoFundMe if I believed she was complicit in any way. The biggest thing that I think is the cause of suffering for family members of serial killers or perpetrators is that question, how did you not know, or did you know?
Heuermann has been charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 4 counts of second-degree murder. As of May of 2024, his case is still in court. These are personal letters from some of the most monstrous people in American history.
They got into like the guts, the blood.
For over 20 years, Barbara Dickstein corresponded with the notorious killers.
The only person I was a little leery of, and still am, was Manson. He has plenty of followers.
This scribble is the handiwork of Charles Manson.
Hey Barb, what's up? How's the weather in New York? And then he would go into, you know, pigs fly. His letters never made any sense.
To gain their trust, Dickstein took on certain roles.
He's wishing me a happy new year, and he's telling me don't be stingy with your body.
Barbara pretended to be a stripper while communicating with Richard Ramirez, California's notorious Night Stalker.
If he were sitting here next to me, okay, we'll leave that part out.
Did it bother you to then be writing to them and corresponding?
Of course.
Her late husband Richie was also involved in her efforts. He pretended to be gay to elicit letters from cannibal killer Jeffrey Dahmer. He also convinced Susan Smith, the South Carolina mom convicted of murdering 2 sons in 1994, that he was in love with her.
Susan Smith totally loved my husband. She actually thought if she got out of prison that my husband was going to marry him.
Her husband even had one special pen pal, the so-called son of Sam, David Berkowitz.
Out of every serial killer that we ever collected from, the one that my husband had a friendship with, and I mean a real friendship where he went to visit him, was Berkowitz.
The letters were featured on the podcast Killer's Vault, hosted by Law & Order actress Elizabeth Rome.
I think we're going to be surprised at how intimate and personal these letters are, and really how graphic and horrible, because the friendships that were built with Barbara and Richie over these decades was authentic.
Actor Eric Roberts narrated the chilling letters.
When I've played these kinds of people who are dangerous, I've always played them where they don't, believe they're bad guys. Now, what I learned through this process, these guys know they're bad guys, and they're proud of it.
Coming up, as the country is obsessed with serial killers in movies and podcasts, we ask if there are actually fewer serial killers today.
America has been frightened and fascinated by serial killers for decades. Dramas and documentaries about serial killers are binge-watching hits. Ted Bundy, Son of Sam, Jeffrey Dahmer. They're names that will live in infamy. Once hundreds of serial killers were thought to be active in the United States, but today many researchers believe there are just a handful. One reason, the presence of surveillance cameras and phone tracking technology is also helping cops catch killers before they kill again.
It is much more difficult to hide if you are a serial killer today than in the 1960s and 1970s.
Jody Johnstone is a forensic psychologist and author of Serial Killers, 101 Questions True Crime Fans Ask. Why do you think the number of serial killers has gone down?
I think there's a couple of different reasons that really come into play here. One is the lack of available victims. So I grew up in the 70s when it really was true that your parents would say, come home before it gets dark. And so we're out, out and about, unsupervised for lengthy amounts of time. I think very few parents today would have that same philosophy. It was very common in the 70s and early 80s for people to hitchhike. And we know how vulnerable people are when they get in somebody else's car.
Brian Koberger, the defendant in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students, was arrested in 7 weeks using advanced DNA and tracking technology. Is he the type of killer who would have killed again?
There's little doubt in my mind that with the amount of premeditation that he put into this, that he would have killed again if he'd gotten away with it.
Meanwhile, it's been revealed that the wife of the accused Gilgo Beach serial killer has cancer, but her health insurance came from her husband's business.
She has breast cancer. She also has skin cancer. She's presently under a course of treatment that's going to continue for the next 12 to 18 months. Her health insurance is due to expire in the next 60 days.
But an attorney for some of the victims' families say she deserves no sympathy.
She should be considered a suspect and not just a bystander or someone who's been victimized by a husband. Remember, she's been there with him steadily for 27 years.
Police say they don't believe Rex Heuermann's wife was involved in the killings. Meantime, Heuermann and Brian Koberger both have pled not guilty.
Those are cases we will continue to follow. Thank you for watching Inside Edition Examines Jeffrey Dahmer. Stay with us, there's so much more from Inside Edition to come.